If I had to describe the craft legacy, I would say that it reminds me of the friend that you have in high school. The one that goes to the farmer's market a lot, frequents it quite often, maybe even works there, and they swear up and down that they exude witchy vibes because they wear an amethyst necklace around their neck and they are learning to do tarot. That's the craft legacy.
And my essence was Nigerian, my grandma's was BRUJA.
Oh my gosh, hello. Hi, how are you? I'm doing better than I was yesterday. Or was I? I can't remember. So, hello, hi, it's been a while, and I won't offer any explanation because no one wants to sit and listen to me talk about why I've been gone for so long. You already know, because I'm depressed and crazy. And I have issues with looking at myself. But I've thrown all of that aside because I watched The Craft Legacy, and I had feelings. If you do not know my credentials, then I will give them to you about why I'm going to fuss and whinge about this movie. And before I give my credentials, I'd like to say my apologies for any background noise that you hear. I live in an apartment complex that was made to suit college students, so it has shoddily made features on the inside. I'm Bree. I am Elderbat certified, as I said before, and I passed my goth exams with a proctor who has 26 years, which rounded up as 30 because I know how to do math in the life of being a goth. A really big thing that I have to talk about, in all honesty, is the fact that this movie is even the way that it is. Maybe it's a fault of the marketing and the press that this movie received. Maybe it's a fault of the movie itself. Maybe it's both, and I like to think it's both. Because this movie portrays itself as the woke witch movie. I can probably insert somewhere around here the screenshot of the article that literally calls The Craft Legacy the woke witch movie for this generation. First and foremost, I'd like to say, I think it's good to have representation in films. I think representation matters. I think it's very, very important, and I think that we should congratulate people who write flawless and amazing stories that have these beautiful, beautiful shots and images while still including representation within these narratives, because they're narratives that deserve to be told. That being said, the narrative being told in The Craft Legacy comes from a thin, willowy, light, petite, white girl with an edgy bob. What? Are you crazy? Like, do you not see what you just did? Especially, it really started hitting me when I was thinking about it and going over my notes again, because they referenced Princess Nokia.
Which I find really interesting because of the controversy happening with Princess Nokia now. But they referenced Princess Nokia.
And also, of course, allusions to her amazing song, BRUJA, that was produced back in 2015, probably. Actually, I should probably look it up, huh? I was wrong. Now, Princess Nokia herself is already a fraught topic that we can discuss in a later day. But the inclusion of her and her obvious embrasure of spirituality and brujas brings to mind the fact that this narrative could have been told in a number of different and amazing and special ways without relying on the tired narrative of oppressed teenage girl, which isn't a tired narrative within itself, but we've already seen plucky white girl has plucky white powers and gets a plucky white friend group with other powers, and they go on plucky little adventures with their plucky little ideas and their fun little plans, and they do fun things between themselves, and they support each other, and they have a fight, then they make up so they can defeat evil. It's an important narrative, it's an important story, but it has been told countless times from the same perspective. At least with the craft, you get to see the actual plight of the black girl going through racism that has never been done so blatantly onto me, but for hyperbole's sake, I can see where the director was coming from. But not even that do you get to dive into. You don't even get to see the different perspectives in a real and true way of the other characters and what they go through, besides singular experiences sprinkled throughout the film. One girl calls Frankie ugly. Zoe talks about the fact that she has no black friends. Girl whose name I can't remember is bullied because she's trans. Or at least there's an allusion to the fact that she was bullied because she's trans. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. It is one thing to want to tell a powerful story about teenage girl, womanhood, and friendship, and it's another thing to carry yourself with your chin up high as a woke narrative of intersectional feminism. That's another thing. And I take, personal offense to it because Brujeria, obeah, other spiritualities that exist within the world that draw upon witchy qualities are rooted in centuries-old traditions that go way, 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 way back to West African traditions, East African traditions, that has been snuffed out because of many, many reasons. A lot of the Caribbean has been colonized and in a sense of a way indoctrinated into the beliefs of modern day Christianity, which demonizes anything that seems very, very pagan, very, very evil, and because obeah and brujeria associates itself with spells, powers, things like that, of course it is deemed completely evil and basically snuffed out and repressed.
Even though there are ways that you can see different components of these pagan religions and beliefs and practices sneaking into daily cultural life.
Another story for another time. But you could have so easily told a story that had to do with even a different spiritual, witchy practice that wasn't the completely played out beliefs of modern day North American English ideals about what witchcraft is. They could have told the story from anyone else's perspective, but they chose Lily. And the problem that just compounds itself with Lily's story being told is the fact that you get to see her stepbrothers, and then you realize, or at least I realized, that I'd much rather a movie about the freaking stepbrothers with their warlock dad and their warlock lineage and bloodline having to deal with growing up with toxic masculinity embedded into their brains and trying to break free of it through their own devices. Can you imagine a story about 3 siblings who are going through their own personal trials and tribulations, trying to figure out how they can express themselves emotionally without being harmed, to put it lightly, by their father, without facing retribution from their peers, without damaging their reputation, without caring about their reputation, while embracing their magic? That movie exists kind of, and it's The Covenant, but it's very, very different from what I am proposing. What I am proposing is a tale of soft boyhood. For my soft boys out there, my kings, I'm looking out for you. I have you on my mind. It would have been so much cooler, so much more interesting, and a very fun perspective, while still having Lily and her coven. I hate to call it her coven. It would have been such an interesting thing to see while still having Lily and her friends having their coven and having to deal with patriarchy and misogyny and chauvinism. The two things can exist side by side. And in this movie they do. But because the brother subplot exists like this, with all the potential and interest that it has and all the weird turnarounds that it has, that the subplot becomes subplot when it's the main plot in the Craft Legacy movie that has been made. I ask you, why? Why? Especially because in West African tradition and spiritual practices drawing from those West African traditions, the same ideals that are portrayed by the popular notions of witchcraft are still upheld, if not more so, and it opens itself up to such greater stories and experiences that could be had and that could be told. So why not tell them? It's so frustrating because this movie doesn't do anything to dispel the notions of things like voodoo or things like obeah. Nothing. It does nothing to do that. It instead popularizes what is already popular in the modern day. Witchcraft isn't a fringe culture anymore. There are 12-year-old girls that are walking around with their Urban Outfitters amethyst necklaces right now as we speak. It's not that crazy. Tarot readings are popular. Tarot readings are a thing. They're not just a thing that you do at a sleepover and you giggle and not talk about ever again. Girls are doing tarot readings at lunch. In their junior high lunchrooms, they are doing tarot readings. And you're telling me that you can't even go away from that a little bit? Not to mention that the magic in this movie looks so cheap. It has such a level of thick, weird glitter to it, which I'm a fan of glitter. I love glitter. I would like to put glitter on everything. I literally, quite literally, bought a bottle of purple glitter glue for fun.
That I am somehow going to work into some kind of art project that I produce.
But I bought it for fun. But I don't want to include it in a movie and cheapen the effects of magic that are supposed to be very, very powerful. That doesn't make sense. So I ask you, why would you do that? There's no answer. Zoe, babe. Zoe, come on. Zoe. Tell me why. Why would you do that? You can write it to me, leave it in my inbox, because I'd like to know. I, of course, do not purport myself to be a witch aficionado. I grew up with a lot of the traditions, I know a lot about it, and I still have things that I practice in my daily life. But I'm not, I'm not the head of a coven. I understand wanting to have a different tone from the original craft, not wanting to be a gothy, edgy movie that leans heavily into how fraught relationships are in high school and how things are both very good and very evil. I get it. But I just then, I'm disinterested. There seems to be so little to motivate me to like these characters or want to see their relationship progress because it doesn't really change that much throughout the movie. Nothing really changes. Lily starts off powerful and remains powerful. The girls start off exuberant and plucky. They have a little friendship breakup for a bit, and then they get back together and remain plucky. The stepfather's evil and stays evil. The mom exists, and the world keeps spinning. There's nothing for me to like. I even kind of miss the addition of these girls teaching themselves, and I think that was a big thing of the craft. Obviously technology has advanced now that you can Google something that you need to or have a Tumblr blog dedicated to your practice of witchcraft. But in the original movie, you could see that the girls have a very pointed passion for witchcraft, but they have a very dismissive nature about other people who try to tell them anything about witchcraft. They dismiss the storekeeper and, plan on stealing from her when they go into her shop. I would have loved to even see something like that. To see that these girls are practicing on their own. They have no mentor. They only have the advice of Tenebrae 46 and her blog where she should attack everything and has a master post of all her witchcraft resources. That could have even been something interesting to explore. Lily knows nothing about witchcraft, it seems, doesn't really even care about it from when we see her, and only starts practicing it and getting interested in it when the other girls approach her. Which is different from the main character from the craft, because she already knew that she had weird powers. She just kind of didn't want to talk about it because it made her into a fucking freak. There's just little different things that add so much more to the characters that from a filmmaking standpoint, from a writing standpoint, should have been explored, but also from the standpoint of talking about powerful, radical womanhood and witchcraft also should have been explored, and I don't know why they weren't. It's a disappointing experience for me. I think it was an inspired choice to have the stepfather be the main villain who happens to be a warlock, who also happens to be Jordan Peterson type Kenny, although he is not as daddy as Peterson is. That subplot is also really interesting as it illustrates toxic masculinity, but in a way also fails the men that it might be trying to comfort or acknowledge in their plight, because the toxic man that we see bullying all of these girls gets changed by a love spell, which instead of making him an obsessive creep, makes him Matt freaking McGorry and walks around spouting BuzzFeed articles and being mindful of his pronouns. And also coming out as bi, which, good for you, honey. But you know what? Like, what? What? Nothing goes anywhere with the younger son either. I don't know, it kind of gives me brain damage. The addition of the two other brothers, besides serving as stepping stone plot points, doesn't make sense. Like, it seems like they're the vestiges of a story that once upon a time centered around them and not Lily and the girls, in my opinion. I think the Craft Legacy had a lot of wasted potential. I think that they made several missteps in how they characterized witchcraft, teenage girls, and toxic masculinity, and it could have been better. My roommate got home, so I hope that you guys like this video. Look at my Tiala Dunn video that I talked about the stupid idea of other black girls and not living up to your blackness in relation to Zoe and how she says that she doesn't have any black friends, because I think it's stupid and implied that she was ostracized because she was different from other black girls, which is a very real thing, but if it was, then you could have investigated it further. If you would like to listen to me more, please think of subscribing. If you don't. If you like this video, thanks. Bye.